So today's lesson is Chapter 3, Section 1.E, page 42 and 43 in Chapter 3. We will be talking about simplifying expressions. So when simplifying expressions, things to remember, x's and y's are different, as are all the different letters. So they're like different units. So x's stay together, y's stay together. So, for example, number 1. When we're simplifying expressions, you can draw algebra tiles if you want, but I'm just going to do different shapes to represent the different letters. So for example, I'm going to box the first x and everything in front of it. I'm also going to put a box around this second, plus 2x. I'm going to do a different shape for y's. I'm going to do circles. So circle and this number and the sign in front, so that you can see they're different. So when we're combining like terms, we take the number in front, so we have 8 plus 2, which is 10, and that becomes the number in front of the x. We do the same for the y's, so we have 2 plus 7, which is 9, which becomes, and it is positive, so we're going to add 9y. We cannot combine x's and y's. This is as simple as this example gets. Okay, example 3. We have x's and w's on this example, but the same principle applies. Different letters, different units. So we have to keep the x's together and the w's together. So I'm going to use different shapes to kind of represent. So I have 5x, and I put a square around everything and the number and the sign in front. Okay, for the next x, I do the same thing. Okay, w is different, so I'm going to use a circle this time. Circle again. So then I take the numbers in front. So I have 5 minus 9, which is, if you remember, the same as 5 plus negative 9. Which is negative 4. So the coefficient, or number in front of the x, is negative 4. The w's, I'm going to do the same thing. I have positive 2 minus, oh, there's no number. So remember, if it's the invisible 1. So we really have minus 1 there, which is 1. So there's two ways to write this. You can put plus w, which is the most common, or you can put plus 1w, whichever makes more sense to you. But remember the invisible 1 in front. So this next one, we have different units. We have x's, k's, and we have just numbers. The same principle applies. X's, k's, and numbers are different. So I'm going to put boxes around the numbers with no variable, with the sign in front. So I'm going to do x's as circles this time. I'm going to do triangles for k's. So now I'm going to combine everything together. So I'm going to have negative 3 plus 11, which gives me 8. And this is the number. There's no variable, so I'm just going to leave it as that. So I'm going to have 8. The x's, I have positive 3 minus 5, which is the same as 3 plus negative 5, if you will, minus 2. So my sign, or my number in front of the x's, is a negative 2. And this is how you would write it. Okay, the k's, I have negative 2 minus, there's no number, so remember it's a 1, which is negative 3k. So this is the most simple because numbers, x's and k's, cannot be combined. They have to be the same. So number 7, we have 3 again. So I'm going to do boxes around the numbers, circles around the x's with the signs in front, and triangles around the k's. So for the numbers, I have 1 minus 2, because I take the sign in front, which is negative 1. So for my answer, I'm going to have a negative 1 for the x's. I'm going to have, there's no number in front of that first one, so it's just going to be a positive 1 plus 5, which is 6. So, and the number in front is 6, and it's positive, so I just add a plus. Okay, the k's, we have positive 4 minus 7, which is the same as 4 plus negative 7, so negative 3. Negative 3k. We cannot combine numbers, x's, and k's. Those are different units, so the simplest form of that one is negative 1 plus 6x minus 3k. Okay, turn your page to page 42. So at the top, it says your friend is struggling to understand what it means when the directions say to simplify the expression. So simplify the expression is combining like terms. All that means is the x's go together and the numbers go together. Just whatever the unit is, they stay the same. You're not trying to solve anything, you're just going to simplify, and you're still going to have letters in your answer. So now we're going to do some examples with fractions. So we're going to do number 9. So once again, just to keep it the same, I'm going to use the square for the x's, and then I have a circle, and these ones are just numbers, but that's fine. So I'm going to use the same principle. You take the number in front of the x, so 1/2 x. Oh, no, you don't need the x. 1/2 plus 1/2. Those are the numbers in front of the x. 1/2 plus 1/2 is 2/2 or 1. So for the x, I can either put x or 1x. They're the same thing. For the numbers, I have 1/3 plus 1/2. Before I add fractions, I have to have the common denominator, so I need to change both of these. So I'm going to times this one by 2 on top and bottom, and I'm going to times this one by 3 on top and bottom. So I'm going to have 2/6 plus 3/6. When you have the common denominator, then you can add the tops. 5/6, and it's positive, so I'm going to add 5/6, and then there's no variable, so it's just going to stay the same. Or if you put 1x, same thing. Okay, number 11. We have 1/2 x, so I'm going to put a square. I have a y, which is a different variable, so I'm going to put a circle. And then I have z, which is a triangle. I'm just going to call it a triangle. None of those are the same shape, so this one cannot be simplified further. The reasoning is I have x's, y's, and z's. I don't have any repeating, so that is as simple as it can go. Okay, number 12 is the next one. So I'm going to do squares around the x's and everything, the number and the sign in front. The numbers, I'll do circles. So then I have 5/3, and then we don't need the x, minus 2/3 x. These already have this common denominator, so I can just subtract the tops to get 3/3, which simplifies to just 1x. And like I said before, the invisible one. The numbers. I have positive 4/5 and minus 3/5. They already have a common denominator, so I do 4 minus 3 is 1. And the denominator stays, and it's positive, so I'm going to put an add 1/5. And either way you put it, that's fine. Okay, we're going to do number 14. Some of them are fractions, some are not, but the same principle applies. So the m's, I'm going to put the square with the number and the sign in front. And the y's, I'm going to do circles. So I have 3 plus 1/4. I have to make this a fraction. I do not have a common denominator, so I need to change it by timesing by 4 on top and bottom. So I'm going to have 12 over 4 plus 1 over 4. And then you add the tops, 13 over 4, and that is my m's. Write your answers as improper fractions. Okay, so now I'm going to have the y's. 2 plus 3/4. I don't have a common denominator, so remember 2's over 1, so I need to multiply this first one by 4. So I'm going to have 8 over 4 plus 3/4. 8 plus 3 is 11. Keep the denominator. It is positive, so I'm going to add 11/4. Don't forget your variable y. And that is how you simplify expressions.